Samson and Delilah. Samson's father was an Israelite named Manoah. Manoah was an intellectual and a man of peace. He believed the troubles between his people and the Philistines could be solved through nonviolence. So when a Philistine baited him, smacking him in the back of the neck, he would look at his tormentor with this "I pity you" look on his face. In this way, he felt he was initiating social change. Samson was not given to thoughts of peace. Punching and throwing things was his natural way. For him, it had always been that way. At 5, he could chop wood with the side of his hand, and at 7, he was able to wrestle a horse to the ground. For Samson, acts of brutishness were like what whistling was to a musical genius, something deep inside that had to come out. Kicking a camel in the stomach and watching it fall to its knees, for Samson, was like hitting a high C. Manoah was embarrassed by his son's feats of strength. He found them oafish. "If you sat down and read a book once in a while, then I'd be impressed," his father said. When he was growing up, Samson wanted to be an angel. Partly it was because he thought it might make his father like him more, but also because he had heard about the feats of strength that angels pulled off, lifting an elephant off an old man's foot, etc. So being an angel seemed like the best of both worlds. You could kick ass in the name of peace. His mother had told him about a nice angel she'd met just before he was born. "What is your name?" his mother asked the angel. "It's nothing you can pronounce," the angel said. The angel then told his mother that she would give birth to a special boy who would be as strong as a mountain. "That's what he said," swore Samson's mother. "A mountain." At the age of 12, Samson went to the market with his father and found a man's money purse on the ground. Samson scooped up the purse and rifled through it. Suddenly his father was upon him, producing a little stick which he broke over his son's skull. Samson wanted to lift his father in the air and dash him against the earth. It was not the kind of thought that angels had. Samson began thinking less and less about being an angel and concentrated more on what he was truly good at. As an adult, when he looked back on the day at the market, he would think that that is how you become a certain way. That is how you become who you are. He would not think this with sentimentality. He would think it matter-of-factly, while biting into a stick of celery. At 15, Samson had a friend named Jason. Jason was a Philistine, but he and Samson got along just fine. Jason was always full of helpful advice. He told Samson that it wasn't enough to perform feats of strength. You had to distinguish yourself. He told Samson he would need a catchphrase. Jason made a few suggestions. "Bring on the pain," and "Load me up, boys," as well as "I am stronger than a tree trunk, and you?" "Any schmuck can yank a crocodile's tail off," said Jason. "But to make the people love you, now that's a gift." When working on gimmicks, the first idea that came to Samson was to grow his hair long. His mother, when recounting the story of the angel, would sometimes say he told her Samson was going to be a Nazirite. A Nazirite was a kind of holy man who was not allowed to touch dead people, drink booze, or cut his hair. The angel had told her all kinds of other things too, most of which she forgot almost immediately. Samson's father, who did not have much use for God and superstitions, had attributed his wife's angelic vision to an attack of the nerves. He refused to have his son go about with the hair of a girl. But now, as a teenager, Samson resolved to grow his hair out as he wished. And as the months wore on, he took great satisfaction in its growth. Seeing it get longer really made him feel like he was accomplishing something. And it might have only been his imagination, but he did feel stronger. And who in his right mind would accuse him of looking like a girl now? His biceps were the size of thighs, and his thighs the size of watermelons. He cracked pecans between his pectorals. In his father's presence, he tied his hair back in a bun. Manoah thought it made Samson look like a certain great aunt of his, an unenlightened woman who he could never stand. When Samson was 18, he met a young Philistine named Delilah. She worked at the market selling eggs. When Delilah danced and her skirts rose into the air, for Samson, it was like God was pounding himself on the chest. It was like the whole world was nothing, just a joke. And the only thing that mattered was Delilah's legs. He thought about Delilah all the time. Sometimes he thought about her so fiercely that it felt as if his mighty head was going to crack right down the middle. He found himself buying 60 to 70 eggs a week, and he imagined it was Delilah who had laid them, that she had kept each egg warmed beneath her buttocks. Eating her eggs made him feel close to her. He would crack each one into his mouth and let it leak down his throat. When he saw Delilah, mostly all he could do was smile, because when he spoke, only nonsense came out. Yet when he was alone in the fields near his home, he grew bold. He would swear his love to her while holding on to the bangs of his hair with his fists. "I love you, Delilah," he would say, his arms wrapped around a tree. He would say it over and over, getting a little louder each time, until the tree snapped. Speaking those words made him drunk. Eventually, Samson came up with an idea to win Delilah's heart. He would show up at the market and perform feats of strength. He and Jason would set up the operation directly across from Delilah's stand, and all the while, as he performed, he would look her right in the eye. So Samson would drag a baby elephant to the market and struggle with the poor animal until he had it raised over his head. As he performed, people gathered around to watch. He would scan the crowd to make sure his father was not present. Then he would stick out his stomach and try to get his footing just right. Next, he would haul the calf over his head and look right at Delilah to see what she made of the whole thing. As Samson looked at her, he tried to fill his mind with the greatest, most beautiful things, so that maybe she would see greatness and beauty in his eyes. As he watched her, the elephant held high in the air, he thought about running his hands up her legs. He thought about kissing her. He continued his act in the market and made nice money out of it, too. At the end of each day, he would hand all of his money to his father, and his father would just stare at him blankly, as though deep in thought about something political. One day, Samson decided to send Jason to Delilah's. Samson was too shy to speak with her, but Jason had a gift with words. "Go forth and tell her of the good deeds of strength I have performed to honor her," Samson said. "Speak of the falcon whose beak I bit off, but make it sound like poetry." Jason, who loved Samson, did as his friend bid him. While he sat with Delilah, he would play his lyre. He would make up songs about the great things that Samson did. As their visits together went on, Delilah and Jason saw that they had a great deal in common. They both loved traditional Philistine folk ballads and found avocado pits, when clutched in one's hand, to be of inexplicable comfort. They began to speak less of Samson and Delilah, and more of Jason and Delilah. While Jason was with Delilah, Samson waited anxiously, curling great weights to pass the time. When Jason returned, Samson ambushed him. "What did she say?" asked Samson. "Does she love me yet?" "No, but she likes you, though. A lot. As a friend. She told me that underneath all the tough guy antics, you're probably a big softy." "That is true," said Samson. "What else did she say?" Jason looked at him for a couple seconds. "She said she loves me, and I love her." As matter-of-factly as he would lace up a sandal, Samson wrapped his long hair around Jason's neck and strangled his friend to death. It was after killing Jason that Samson started to change. He moved out of his father's house and became less satisfied lifting and maiming animals. He felt it was time to move on to people. Philistine people. Some Israelites had approached him in the past about leading their uprising. "You're a Jew, Samson," the emissaries would tell him. "Join us in our struggle." "No thanks," Samson would say. "I have no beef with the Philistines. They treat me just fine." He knew his father would fly off the handle if he saw Samson so much as even talking to one of those uprising guys. Now, though, he decided he wanted to deliver the Jews. When asked about the change of heart, he would say, "Personal reasons." Samson was not a political animal. He just wanted to hit people, hard enough to make them die. It would be like making Jason die, again and again, because once was not enough. News of Samson's godlike power spread like wild. He was no longer a sideshow. He had become famous, and killing had become a kind of therapy for him. This one looks like that teacher who called me lunkheaded, he thought. And this one looks like my father. He lifted that man up to his face by the beard so he could spit in his eye. Unfortunately, his murdering only exacerbated his problems, which made him more murderous. He felt like he was chipping away at one big enemy, but the more he chipped, the bigger it grew.